Hey everybody, Corey Ears here. Head coaching search got you down? With all the uncertainty surrounding the Florida football program right now, I thought I'd start looking around in other directions, so I looked at the line for this weekend's game. And we are 3.5-point dogs at home against a team that hasn't beat us at home since Ron Zook was our coach. This made me think it's a perfect time to reflect on some of the underdogs in Florida football history. The student athletes that showed up with maybe a little less fanfare than some of their peers before they etched their names in Gator lore. We all remember the Emmitt Smiths, the Tim Tebows, the Percy Harvins, the freak Javon Curse. Those names go on and on. But how about the guys that were unheralded before they made huge impacts on the field in Gainesville? I could spend hours ranting on this subject, but I went ahead and narrowed down a list of a few players that really stand out to me. But before we get too deep into it, if you like content like this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It's free to you and means a whole lot to me. Thanks in advance. All right, first on the list, let's dial the clock back to the 80s with a walk-on quarterback who had 0 major college scholarship offers. A guy that started 8th on the Gators depth chart his freshman year and decided to redshirt. This guy not only won a now vacated SEC championship behind the Great Wall of Florida, he also led the Gators to their first ever #1 ranking in the AP poll. Individually, he garnered an SEC Player of the Year award and is now in the University of Florida Athletics Hall of Fame. First on my list is none other than the current head coach at the Western Carolina Catamounts, the throwing Mayoan, Mr. Kerwin Bell. If you're young enough you don't know who that is, or if you're old enough you don't really remember, I'm going to include some links in the description and or the comments down below. Next up, we have another quarterback, a 2-star recruit, the number 107th quarterback in his class out of Manville, Texas, Mr. Kyle Trask. He went from being the 2,721st recruit in the class of 2016 to starting quarterback at the University of Florida. In 2020, he set school records for 4,283 yards passing and 43 touchdowns, leading the Gators to an SEC championship game and becoming a Heisman Trophy finalist. After serving as backup to Tom Brady and Baker Mayfield with my beloved Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he's still currently in the NFL as a backup quarterback to the Atlanta Falcons. Again, I'll do this with most of the players on this list, but I'll throw some highlights of his down in the description for you. Let's move to a running back, returner, wide receiver out of St. Augustine, a 3-star and the 759th recruit in the class of 2003, Brandon James. He went from a 3-star recruit to a freshman All-American, a first-team All-SEC selection, a consensus All-American. This 2-time national champion still holds the all-time SEC records for kickoff return yardage and combined kick return yardage. If you don't remember him, go back and watch the 2007 National Championship game when he followed up Ted Ginn's opening kickoff return for a touchdown with a 33-yard return of his own that completely swung the momentum in Florida's favor en route to a 41-14 championship victory. If I can find it, I'll pin it. Now here we go with a guy that won't jump off the stat sheet necessarily, but I always hold in high regard, Billy Latsko. He joined the Gators as a walk-on linebacker. He sometimes played offense, defense, and special teams in the same game in the 2000s. It's tough to find a highlight reel of his because he primarily played fullback, a thankless position if you will. But I'll post his high school highlights and highlights of a game that he had a huge influence in. The game known as Spurrier's Vengeance. It's the first cocktail party following Coach Spurrier's only loss in the series. Look at the play around 32 seconds. Philly special? I think not. Spurrier Special. Look at Doug Johnson catch that touchdown. Up next, this Gainesville native walk-on wide receiver went on to be a 3-time All-SEC selection. He's in the top 10 in Gators history in receptions and receiving yards. He's also #1 in Florida history and #2 in SEC history in all-time touchdown receptions. He was #1 on that list until Devontae Smith recently broke that record. In 1993, Mick Hubert famously called, "Doering's got a touchdown," in regard to him scoring the game-winning touchdown against Kentucky that year. A familiar face across the ESPN and SEC network platforms? You guessed it, Chris Doering is the first and only wide receiver to make my underdogs list. I flip-flopped a lot on whether to include this next guy. As a 3-star, he was the 34th running back in the country, though he played primarily quarterback in high school. His offer list was Florida, Florida Atlantic, South Florida, and West Virginia. He ended up playing tight end, wide receiver, fullback, and quarterback for the Gators. I include him in this list because he basically played positionless football, and as a freshman, he broke Tim Tebow's team record for most touchdowns scored in a game with 6, and went on to play in 50 games all over the offense. If you haven't figured it out by now, it's Mr. Versatility, Trey Burton. All right, let's dial the clock back again and think about how recruiting has changed over the years. When was the last time a standout from Glade Central High School had to walk on to play major college football? Louis Oliver is the only defender on this list. He walked onto the Gator squad in 1985 as a free safety. He went on to total 11 interceptions, become team captain, a 2-time first All-SEC selection, a first-team All-American, and a consensus All-American. He was inducted into the University Athletics Hall of Fame in the year 2000 and has gone down as one of the greatest Gators to ever play the game. This last one was really tough to pick, but when you walk on and hold the record for most points in Gators history and second in SEC history, it was very hard to pass on the Rocket, Jeff Chandler. Special teams was tough for this list because there's not a lot of really highly ranked punters and kickers. But I'd love to also mention the walk-on Grozo Award winner, Judd Dillon Davis. And Money Mac Evan McPherson was a 3-star, but he was also the #1 kicker in the country, so that doesn't really count. Eddie Pinheiro played soccer all the way into his collegiate career, until he went to open tryouts at Alabama and Florida. That's wild. Now, in conclusion, you can see it doesn't take a 5-star rating to make a huge impact on Steve Spurrier Field. Just dream big and make it happen. Like I said, I'll leave some links down in the description of each of these athletes for you. Let me know who I left out and who you think is an underdog that rose to help out the orange and blue. Don't forget to subscribe below and go Gators.